Ladies, gentlemen, I'm back for now. We'll see how it goes. I'm sorry about the poopy mic right off the bat. I'm kind of dropping production quality for the sake of just pumping videos out in any fashion because I've seen that my YouTube channel's been so inactive and I really like my YouTube channel and it's summer, so I might as well try and do something. So right here, this is already a big change for me. I'm fighting for early game map control. I'm trying out new builds for each race, and I'm trying out map control, early game timing attacks, like not full timing all-ins, but like timing harassments for both map control and scouting, and for the sake of keeping him out of my base through aggression and forcing him to respawn, and for forcing my opponents to lose the initiative because my traditional Bronze to Grandmaster build was called out by a commenter and viewer on my latest video who said that I'll never get out of Platinum with that build because I need valid forms of harassment and also probably subtext, a million other things. And I'm all about working smarter, not harder, and I believe having different build orders for each race is a very good step in that direction. And so I fuck up this build order right here. I'm supposed to make like 8 Reapers and a couple Hellions, and then I jump the Reapers into his base or natural and kill as many SCVs as I can and cause a lot of damage and harassment. But I flub it up. It's okay. I've still got a whole build order behind it to do, and it's still helpful to have Hellions on the board in Terran versus Terran. This is usually where I build tanks, but you can't put any early game pressure on with tanks. It's just good for completely locking down your base defensively, and I'm trying to break out of that Turtle Terran mindset. I'll speed up a little bit because it is a bit of just macro that I'm focusing on lately. I'm trying to learn these build orders. They're pretty tough, and I'm actively learning them on the ladder because I get bored playing against myself or AI in custom matches. I am using the spawning tool plugin for Overwatch. No, not Overwatch. Overwolf, I think it's called. I'm having a lot of fun with that. It gives you your build order on your screen. It has a little timer that shows what build is up next for you. It makes little dings when these new builds are due. By builds, like anything you're placing, whether it's units or production facilities, which is so amazing. I wish I knew about that earlier because earlier he sends in a Raven, and look, I have a Raven, and I'm gonna take my starport off of the tech lab, and I would never be able to efficiently do that without relying on these builds. And that spawning tool keeps me on track because the add-on switches are so difficult for me to try and remember. I feel like I'm cheating. It's such a useful plugin. I probably am if I was in a tournament or something, but it's such a good way to learn these build orders. It's really like baby build order training wheels, and that's exactly what I need right now. My opponent is putting up some effective Raven harass, which I was really happy to see. Usually I just swat these bits of harassment down with my macro max supply attack builds, where I just like build up to max supply attack. But like, I feel like I'm really in a little chess match now against these guys, having these little early game battles. I mean, I'm clearly shit at it. I let him kill my Raven for no reason, and I probably could have been doing the same to him with my Raven. But I'm just excited to be playing with Ravens. I'm trying to learn to micro Ravens and Ghosts, and I'm trying to use Bio against other races, and it's all so new to me. I'm trying to learn a lot at once, but I'm trying to just knock out the games over and over with my main focus just being practicing the build order, but also having fun with the little bit of micro and battles on the map that I can have. Here I try and go in to finally get one last bit of harassment. I realize he already has his tanks up, so I figure the best I can do with these units is make him kill a tank and blow up his buddies. I don't get the tank I probably killed a couple SCVs. I didn't get as many killed as I wanted, but I'm also really focused on the psychological damage in seizing the initiative because I'm a Plat 3, and I feel like all these different dilemmas actually have, like, it's like the baby version of harassment and micro battles that the pros have. But instead of like keeping all my troops alive and getting them out, getting resource efficiency, I figure just having an attack on his side really does force these opponents into microing. If you just let them macro, I'm sure they've done these builds a whole lot and can do it. But the second, I'm speaking from my own experience too, the second that I have to switch anything up because I'm being attacked, you could just completely fumble your build at that point at these levels. Myself included. Alright, I'll speed up a little bit because I'm back to macroing. One thing you will notice is my mineral lines are gonna get oversaturated. I'm gonna forget to make expansions, but again, that all comes down to, I'm doing it intentionally by like through trying to focus on not like too much at once, but other things such as map control. And these things do have their values. It may not show in supply count and such, but what it does usually show in is opponent's mineral count, to be honest. You'll watch when the opponent starts dealing with any form of harassment that at these ranks their mineral counts reach up to like fucking 8,000. And as long as, right now I'm justifying it as long as my minerals are low, it means I'm doing alright. I mean, obviously they're gonna stay low if I don't expand, but just being able to spend my minerals while looking off map, or I guess on map during like fights, rather than having to be staring right at my base, is practice and not just being a turtle Terran. And this is kind of where I remember the Vibe said this build order is meant to be out on map, maybe just Terran and Terran in general. And so I'm starting to select my hotkeys. I'm getting close to max out, and so here I go. Unfortunately, right when I want to move out, he's moving out, and I move out of position. I really should focus on defense at this point, but my wanting to be on the map is getting the better of me. And I think there is something to intercepting an enemy before they get to your base. And so I move over. I see where the battle's going to be held. I've been working on leapfrogging tanks, so I have the sieged ones. I think I overextend my unsieged ones. I don't think I should leapfrog that far. And it shows, by the way, that the tanks and my front line of bio gets completely obliterated. My third is overly saturated, I know. I've been working on air control in Terran versus Terran, so you'll see. I'm curious if he's trying the same build as me, but I'm not even building medevacs, which is again contrary to any of my normal builds I do as Terran. And I'm trying to make less Marauders. I'm not sure how great I did it here, but it seems like in Terran versus Terran, Marauders are a waste of, not a waste, but they're pretty heavy and taxing on your gas count, which does become a problem when you're trying to lean into tanks and air control. Here's where I start transitioning into a battle cruiser endgame, because I find in Terran versus Terran, my whole life, it's always been Marines, medevacs, and Marauders, tanks, Vikings, Liberators, and only ever that. So throwing battle cruisers in the endgame and optimistically trying to fully transition into them just gives me some spice. And even if I don't fully transition into them, it's probably mad inefficient to have this combined armies, but I love combined arms armies. I love having all my tanks, my Marines, my Vikings, and my battle cruisers. It's just so pretty. I'd love to have Ravens in there too, but in late game when I'm doing all that, it's just a step too much micro for me right now. The battle cruisers already end up taking so much babying because I don't want to lose them. I think if I wanted to go try hard, instead of battle cruisers, I'd pump out some Ravens. But I don't know, battle cruisers are a good late game choice for Terran. I think where I really struggle is in this intermediate between my early game / mid game and my late game army. Is I keep wanting to build out of all my production facilities, but I feel like there's a point where you have to lets them stay inactive. That way you can focus on stuff such as all the battle cruisers.
You're all mined out of that mineral field.
I'm really proud of that tank I siege up too.
No more gas.
I'm learning to, along comes with this trying to stop being a turtle Terran, is placing my tanks farther out on the map. I know realistically these tanks don't look too far out on the map, but that one pushed up against that wall, I'm trying to take this whole high ground instead of looking at it as my main natural and third. I'm trying to learn how to draw like a front line on the map, because normally in Turtle Terran I just focus on where everything's rallying and then just move everything to the other side of the map. Sorry, I'll fast forward a bit more. Alright, I've got the battle cruisers on the map. I also moved my main army out, so I'm trying to stay active on the map too now, which I know I wasn't doing it for a bit, but sometimes as baby, you need to just sit down and regather your thoughts in macro. I see that he's attacking on the bottom. I know that my north army that was moving out can't reinforce in time for this attack by him, and so I pull my battle cruisers back, and I think it works well for me. Here I take air control. He has a lot of Thors. I didn't expect that many Thors, and so they do wipe out my ground army pretty hard. But I know the Vikings do well against armor, and I really do want to deal with this attack. So I land him, and I think it was to good effect. I mean, it didn't kill a lot of units, but his tanks are just one shot now, so what's he gonna do? Repair them with tactical mules? Maybe, that'd be cool to see. And here, I try to get him off my ass because I'm trying to expand to a fourth, and I feel like this is a good dilemma. If you look at my opponent's mineral count, it's ridiculously high, which means he has been overextending himself micro-wise. I leave the battlecruiser alone because it was more of a distraction. Sure, it's expensive for a harassment, but I just really think that right now, at these low plat leagues, it's an effective harassment. When you have battlecruiser in your main, you panic. It's natural for this league. I'll fast forward a bit because I mean, he's not on my side of the map now. He is maxed out. What's he doing? I'm gonna look at his side. Okay, he's got a little death ball. So, you know, I think he had to micro to deal with that battle cruiser and then just forgot that he had his whole army there. So it did technically give me some time to expand. There's value to these things like map control, harassment, and again, baby forms of map control and harassment, because I'm a Plat 3, lay off me. But I'm learning how to utilize these things rather than just lean on my old traditional overwhelm them with numbers approach. I feel like in Terran versus Terran especially, it's really hard to overwhelm them with numbers because your numbers can still disappear so fast against a tank barrage. Alright, I'll fast forward a bit. He has 10k minerals. I'm beating him at this point, I feel, just by keeping my minerals spent. Like, I've thrown my army away over and over again, but I keep remaxing out, and so he's just on the back foot now. I say that, but he's attacking me last. Just bear with me. It's just late at night. I really started transitioning in the late game in the sense that it's like, oh shit, I need to desaturate these mineral lines and make new command centers. It's hard to do this map control and active battling while remembering to work on your command centers. In this fight, again, like I said, you can run an army into the enemies so fast and have them all die. I pull back the Vikings to keep what little remnants I can from that. But that was my form of attack and pressure. It sure is really sloppy, but because he's struggling to get his infrastructure and minerals spent, I'm still remaxing at a decent rate. I'm still defending. I mean, this is a pretty serious attack, but he's close to my side of reinforcements now, so I figure I have so many command centers I can rebuild if he hurts me. These are all new concepts to me. And those Vikings when they're landed do so much damage against mech, it's beautiful. fast forward a bit. But like, I need to keep a mental note that at late game I do get a little too excited with this map control and battling, that just micro in general. Army micro. I get too caught up in my army micro late game to the detriment of these fucking atrocious mineral lines. What really helps me for that, and I keep pretending like I don't have enough time to do it, is set my hotkeys for camera controls, because I have camera hotkeys for all my F keys, and when I do set all my bases on there, it helps me immensely with my macro and with my mineral line management. But that's the number one thing that I think I could improve macro wise. If I just start hotkeying those consistently, I think I'll notice my SCV disbursement among spaces will be better. And it'll help me because it's streamlined, that way I can focus more on things like what I'm doing right now, aka fighting. I'm just kind of pushing through him at this point. I've been kind of noticing that his ground army is getting whittled. It's hard for me to tell when I can push. Like, I might have been able to push immediately after I wiped out his one Thor army with my Vikings, but my Turtle Terran in me says wait till you max out again. I don't think that's the worst idea, because that gives me time to work on macro. But I don't know. I feel like versus Protoss, it's a whole different story sometimes, and you need to lean on that pressure. So, we'll see how it works out. We'll see how I progress. After this, just I need to figure out my build orders. What are the good build orders you search for? I kind of realize at this point that its pieces are probably on the bottom side of the map, but I did that noob mistake where I just keep pushing into the same angle. This is where I love having some bio on the ground, even with like a higher tech army. Is his Vikings can't do shit against my Marines, which really helps buffer for my battle cruisers, which haven't been at high health really. I leapfrog the tanks forward, which I'm starting to practice more and I love to do. And then reinforcements come in. And I haven't been scanning because I'm trying to learn how to scout through attacking. And if you see here, I'm learning that if I don't see a lot of his units attacking me anymore, he probably doesn't have a lot of troops or an army at all. Which sounds obvious, but I swear for the longest time throughout my learning career, you can feel like you wiped out their army and then just push into the reinforcements and completely whittle because they had like a couple siege tanks tucked away. Here's him attempting to break out with what army he has left from his production. And this is where I finally decide that I'm going to work on... I've killed a lot of his production, so now I just want to kill his econ, which would likely be a lot of tanks on the bottom left flank. And so that's what I do, which I think was smart. He might have had a tank line forming on the high ground in his main. So this is my way of not just losing my entire army for minimal gains. So here comes his last ditch effort, but I have enough battle cruisers that they don't evaporate right away, especially because his Viking count has died. And so I have enough time to use my small brain to micro some Yamato cannons out. And I'm realizing after watching this replay that Yamato cannons are just so fucking powerful. And so there you have it. A Terran versus Terran with my new build order. And now we're going to go on to Zerg. We're going to make this a long video because it's 11 o'clock at night and I just want to finish getting a video out. And I could split this into two. But I just want to get a video out too because I haven't been posting for a while and I'm excited to be back. As back as I am. It's summer break, so I've got to be able to have a few more opportunities to record and produce videos. I love seeing you all again. I've been currently conducting a pollinator research study, which is very fun. Plant pollinators using native plants and ornamental hybrids and cultivars to see the difference between pollination between native plants and these common garden variants of native plants. Because pollinators are important, and people love growing their pollinator gardens, but there's really not a massive wealth of information on whether these varieties of native plants are actually great for pollinators. I mean, there's a decent amount of knowledge, but I'm focusing on an urban environment, which I think is a little bit unique, because it seems like a lot of this research with pollinators is done in agriculture because that's where all the money's at, or in natural wild areas because that's kind of normal. But this urban habitat's just always growing day by day to cover more surface area of the world, so it's important to understand how ecology works in that environment. That way we can hopefully improve our urban environments to be more pollinator friendly, because we're already trying to do that, shown through the increase of sales of plants marked as pollinator friendly. And the going knowledge on exotic plants versus native plants, exotic being ones that weren't traditionally grown in a region before colonial era periods, at least in America, is that exotics are usually really shitty and serve no nutrients for ecosystems compared to native plants. Especially on like the bug level and the pollinator level. Mainly for like feeding and hosting. That seems to be one interesting thing about pollinators, is they possibly do benefit from these exotic plants just because there's nectar and pollen available, and that's kind of like food. But there's also specialist pollinators which need specific native plants. So it'd be interesting to see how they do compared to these selectively bred and hybridized variants of the natives that are usually used for aesthetic purposes with no thought of ecological value in mind. But our ornamental plants are starting to need to be available as resources for ecosystems because we're taking up so much land. I mean, pollinators, right? Anyways, I'm trying against this Terran versus Zerg build. A bunch of Hellions, like 6 or 8 Hellions at the start in their natural, and then a medevac drop of 6 Marines in their main. And it's like a bit of a put them on the back foot thing. But this Zerg put me on the back foot by just sending out waves of Zerglings like it's a goddamn tower defense game. Usually I have tanks, so like these sorts of early game harass gets shut down immediately, but I'm having to learn how to deal with these sorts of early game harassment out on the map before they even get here, I feel. Or if they do get here, I should be on their side. And it's very tricky because it takes a lot more awareness of your units and map, because they're more fragile army comps. They're not like tanks where they kill half of the enemy attacking force before they even can hurt your tank. You know, Turtle Terran shit. What you'll see is a tech lab on that starport, and so the follow-up to my initial attack, which I wasn't even able to get out because it died to his, is a starport follow-up. But man, I was really struggling to deal with these lings. I was getting worried that they were going to start overwhelming me. Thankfully didn't make any banelings with it, or else that might have allowed them to push into my base. But again, these Hellions are pretty effective early game units that I never usually utilize, but man, these early game units like Hellions and Reapers are so fun to use because they move across the map so fast. On a massive map like this, that has a lot of value to it for taking map control and harassing the enemy. I got the battle cruiser on the way, and so traditionally, and if it was like me using this build order effectively and efficiently and correctly, which clearly not because I'm fucking learning it right now, is I'd have that attack, and then my shit would most likely like entirely trade. I feel like I'm getting good trades at this point anyways, but the battlecruiser kind of helps you transition into a bio mid to late game, because if he tries to use, I don't know, it's like Zerg usually doesn't have a lot of ground to air attack. So this battle cruiser is good for both offense and defense. And then look at this. I'm add-on swapping. I never do that because my baby builds are made to not have to be so complicated. Or if they do, I've just traditionally ignored it. But that spawning tool plugin is so useful for keeping my builds correct in my head and literally on the screen that it's possible for me. Right here I fucked up. I should have made a third base, but instead I started expanding and doing everything because I mean I'm micro and a battle cruiser across the map, man. I don't want to lose it, that's distracting. But you know, so it goes. Growing pains.
You're all mined out of that mineral. Head on, finished up. You
If
picked
you
the
notice on the
copy
map, I actually did scout in the top left that he has a creep. A big patch of creep. And so a secret third, but I did not notice that during this. It does show me that I need to pay a bit more attention to the details on the minimap. Or just scout bases more efficiently, but yeah. My battle cruiser's in position. Focusing on my macro right now though. And I'll tell you, I'm having so much fun. For my Terran versus Protoss and Terran versus Zerg build, they utilize a lot of bio. I'm trying to learn how to use Ghosts against Protoss. And against Zerg, I'm trying just to learn how to do bio. I usually just go tanks because it just makes sense to me. Just kill the swaths of lings with your tanks. But it gets boring just baiting the tanks all around the map. They move so slow. Meanwhile, your entire bio army can be picked up in your medevacs and shit like that. And so, it's tough because a bio army is fragile and can get killed by a couple banelings if you're stupid. But, I mean, you gotta learn someday, right? Bio's like half of Terran. Yeah, the Necro, you got the bio, right? So, it's fucking fantastic starting to actually play with bio because I feel like I'm rejuvenating the game for myself and rejuvenating Terran. I've been playing such a restrictive build of Terran, doing these wait till I max out and then just A move with tanks, Thors, and bio. But doing shit like going mostly bio, it's really fun to challenge myself. And I fucked up here. I think I was supposed to leave that that factory there and then build a new one to make Thors, but I just moved my factory because I'm trying to use Widow Mines now too. I've never used Widow Mines, so it's like using these units I never use because they're so micro intensive completely freshen up the gameplay experience. Who would have thought of actually using new units? And they're used for such different play styles and dynamic ways of moving around. Anyways, also what you'll notice just happened is my battle cruiser, my one beautiful battle cruiser I lost. But if you saw, he had his whole entire army basically right now is anti-air, and it's air-to-air or air-to-structure. So he can't really fight my bio ground army right now. And that's the beauty of throwing a battle cruiser out at around 7 minutes at Plat 3. And kind of probably Plat 2 too, but I don't know anymore. I've been out of the rank system for so long. But the psychological effect of that, usually if somebody's thrown one battle cruiser at you at these stages of the ladder, that's all they're going. That means they're cheesing you, and they're just going to do a battle cruiser all in. I know, like, in the professional scene or even like a higher level competitive scene, the battle cruiser is more of just because it's a good choice against Zerg in the early game and lets you transition. But at these early leagues, these complex kind of builds are so much to deal with as a newbie like myself and my Plat friends, because it requires such varied responses if you're trying to just be reactive to the enemy's build order. Like, I forced out anti-air from him, but he overdid his commitment to anti-air, which is allowing me to run around and kill his stuff. And so he figures I might as well try and base trade with his air army, but I kind of anticipated the over-anticipation because it's been happening a few times. Is like they see the battle cruiser and just go full into corruptors, which is a pain in the ass because these things, when they do go into it, are such a fucking menace. can kill command centers and shit so fast, but I threw down turrets because I expected it, so I knew it wouldn't be too big of a problem. Losing the command center probably wasn't great, but I went for this base trade with a bit of a doom drop because I knew that his ground army was probably lacking with that many corruptors. And then I micro it while also making troops with my hotkeys. And this is a pretty big attack because I've basically wiped out his army. And they're still going. And killing queens is always good against Zerg. So I leave it now because I know that Winter's screaming that I'm supply blocked. And that I absolutely throw that drop away. I knew there were spore crawlers there. He also put a lot of his money into spore crawlers because he's terrified of battle cruisers jumping into his bases. Which again made him overcommit into defense. My mineral lines are atrocious. I know. We're learning here. And I'm still beating him. The micro's doing stuff. It's not just for nothing. And then I make another doom drop. This is just me playing around with getting on the map. But man, I love being able to pick up a whole army with medevacs. It's just fun and funny. That kind of mobility. I mean, I'm starting to utilize Terran like a true Terran. Just stupid decisions. Just throwing my waves of bio around. It's so fun, man. I've really refreshed the game with these different play styles, and it makes me so happy. So thank you, the viewer who told me not to just bronze to grandmaster a move build my life away. I feel like I'm starting to blossom into a beautiful old platinum Terran. And at this point, this kills the Zerg. I'm gonna fast forward because he kind of just started putting his bases all over the map, and this was like just bug control at this point. He was persistent, I'll give him that. He even went to the lurkers trying to throw me off. And he's getting his harass down, and I've 17 minutes in and I only have 3 bases. Blah blah blah, I know. We're having fun. This isn't solely for educational purposes. And now I'm trolling. I know, it's a bit of disrespect, but when they're hiding like this, you kinda gotta play the psychological game. I just A-move all my shit now because I know my production's bigger. And GG to you too, amigo Axolotl. And GG to you all watching. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. I've got a Starcraft playlist if you want to check out more of this. Have a great night or day or whatever. Goodbye. Love you.